Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today I have a deck analysis for you guys. This time it's going to be on Seismitoad Crobat, not the most common Seismitoad variant out there. That probably goes to something like Seismitoad Shaman or Seismitoad Slurpuff. But Seismitoad Crobat is definitely a pretty big threat, and I think is a little bit under the radar as well. So let's get straight into it. First off, we've got 4 Seismitoad EX, which is pretty standard in every Toad deck, with pretty much just for this Quaking Punch attack, one of the strongest attacks in the game at the moment. Not damage wise, but the effect is so good. You're locking your opponent out of trainers. Your opponent can't play item cards next turn, which is so strong. It can sometimes put opponents in really sticky situations that they can't really deal with the board in front of them, and it means that they sometimes can't pull off their strategy whatsoever, and just slowly sort of puts you ahead by slowing your opponent down. It gives them a lot of dead cards in their hand, a lot of dead cards in the deck, and if they've got sort of trainer, draw support, things like that, it can sometimes just stop them altogether. So you can definitely understand why Quaking Punch is one of the strongest attacks in the format at the moment. In some people's opinions it is the strongest attack. We've then got a 3-3-2 Crobat line, a bit of an odd Crobat line. A lot of the time you'll see a 4-3-2 or a 4-3-3, or maybe even 4-4-3. But I've gone for a bit of a thinner Crobat line just because Seismitoad is a deck that really relies on its consistency, and as you can see down here, we're actually only running 4 double colourless, so we don't want too many clunky cards because we need to be running through the deck relatively quickly to be able to find this double colourless as quickly as possible and start getting the lockdown. We're running 3 of the free flight Zubat simply because it's the better of the 2 Zubats in the format at the moment. And then we've got 3 Golbat. Sneaky Bite is all we use it for, just 2 damage on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And then 2 Crobat, again 3 damage on one of your opponent's Pokemon. This bat line here is what makes this version of Seismitoad EX so much more favourable against other Toad variants. A lot of the time, if in a Toad mirror match, it's whoever can really get the lockdown first and can not break the lock will win the game. But with the Crobat line, you can often sort of hold the Crobats, hold the Golbats, and have enough additional damage to be able to knock out a Toad a turn early. And sometimes that turn is a little bit too early for your opponent to be able to respond, meaning that the lock is sort of broken, and you can then start using your trainers, which puts you at such an advantage. If you can get 1 turn of trainers in the Seismitoad mirror match after the locks have been established, you're pretty much going to win. It's so important to be able to get that 1 turn of trainers, because you can use your lasers, you can use your Ultra Balls, you can use absolutely anything in the deck to try and slow your opponent down even further. And often 1 turn of trainers can lead to another, just because you have access to be able to slow them down even more. Finally, we've got 3 Shaman EX, pretty much because Shaman is the best card of the new set, and setup is just such a strong ability. It's also another good way of drawing out of Seismitoad locks and Executor locks if you find them anymore, because it's a Pokemon-based draw engine, meaning that if you've been locked out of items but you have a low hand anyway and you have a Shaman, you can still draw through the deck. And again, it's another reason why it helps this Toad variant in the mirror match, because Toads can often sort of go whoever sort of swings first and doesn't break the lock will win. And if you can draw through your deck a little bit quicker, you're more likely to be able to do that, even if it's only 1 or 2 cards at a time. I would go over the trainers, but I'm just going to quickly go over the energy. As you can see, there's only 4 DCE, pretty much just because that's all you need. There is no reason whatsoever to run water, because Grenade Hammer, you're just never going to use it. It's all about this lock. Grenade Hammer can sometimes win you the game a turn early, but more often than not, if you're going to win that turn, 2 more turns of the lock won't change anything. The only time it would change anything is if your opponent would win on the following turn. But sometimes, with the amount of pressure that bats can sort of put on, that sometimes doesn't even matter, because you can also speed up your aggression and take prizes early as well. Also, the only reason I personally would perhaps consider running water energy or some form of basic energy is pretty much for head ringers, just because if your Toad is head ringered and you don't want to attach a second double colourless to be able to use Quaking Punch, but you don't have another choice, if you've got 1 or 2 basic energy, it can sometimes be a little bit less painful. But personally, I still feel like 4 double colourless is fine. You have enough outs to be able to get a second Toad, to be able to not worry too much about head ringer turn 1. Especially now we've got Shaman to be able to draw through the deck a little bit quicker as well. There are quite a few outs to getting 1 or 2 Seismitoad out on the board in one turn, meaning that head ringer isn't as daunting anymore. Onto the trainers, I've gone for Computer Search. I could completely justify playing Scoop Up Cyclone in the deck because we've got Bats and Shaman, and it's such a good healing card. But personally, I feel Computer Search is just another card that can sometimes put you just that single step ahead of other Toad players, meaning that you can beat the mirror a little bit more often, which I think is so crucial considering how much Toad is out there at the moment. Toad is probably one of the best decks in the format, if not the best deck in the format, the best card in the format, most versatile at least, and therefore being able to sort of put yourself ahead of all other Toad players, it means that you can definitely sort of justify your wins a lot nicer and are able to search for the little pieces that you need to be able to secure the wins or the early pressure that you need to make sure you sort of last throughout the game, really. Though Scoop Up Cyclone would not be a bad card whatsoever, considering we have got Bats, and it's all about healing Toads, and obviously it's got such good synergy with Shaman. Scoop Up Cyclone is perfectly viable as well, I think. I've then got 2 Enhanced Hammer. Unfortunately, because of the space Bats-wise, the deck suffers in the hammers department, and I've only managed to fit in 2 Enhanced Hammer. I feel personally Enhanced Hammer is a better play than 2 Crushing Hammer. I feel Crushing Hammer is either a 4 of or a 0 of, because it's such a flippy card, and personally I don't trust flips enough to justify a 2 of, because that could be 2 completely wasted slots in the deck. And whilst if your opponent's playing no special energy, your Enhanced Hammers are 2 wasted slots. So many decks are playing special energy at the moment, especially with sort of all of the Raichu hype and Rayquaza being fairly big, and obviously other Toads playing DCE. There's just so many special energy in the field at the moment. I feel the 2 Enhanced Hammer is a much better play than the 2 Crushing Hammer. The Crushing Hammer does have more versatility, but ultimately, I feel like 2 Crushing Hammer is going to be more of a wasted 2 cards than the 2 Enhanced Hammer, in my personal opinion. Though again, I could perfectly justify 2 Crushing Hammer if you personally prefer Crushing Hammer in the deck than Enhanced Hammer. That's completely fine. For Hypnotoxic Laser, pretty much this is how Toad does its damage, or usually how Toad does his damage. Obviously, we have the 5 Bats in here to be able to increase the damage further, but Laser is still such an integral part of being able to do huge damage and sort of cause pressure on the opponent with Toad, because sometimes they cannot even attack, they can't use items, and if they're asleep they can't even attack, meaning that they're just sort of passing over their turn. You're getting a free turn, getting 110 damage if you've got a Muscle Band as well. You're getting 110 damage on for free, providing you've got, like I say, a Muscle Band and then a Verbank. There's just so much pressure with Hypnotoxic Laser, and obviously, even if you don't get them to sleep, the poison is pretty deadly. And with the Bats, you can often sort of manipulate damage enough to cause Hypnotoxic Laser Pokemon or poison Pokemon to die, going back into your turn. So you can then swing at a different Pokemon, often taking 4 prizes in 2 or 3 turns if they decide to throw up another EX, and you've got access to the Hypnotoxic Lasers again. We've then got 4 Super Scoop Up, pretty much again like I said for Scoop Up Cyclone, it heals the Toad, which is really good. It reuses Shaman's setup ability, which is insanely good, just because it's drawing more cards. And it can sometimes be an extra 20 or 30 damage with bats, which can just sort of push the knockout a little bit closer and mean that you're getting the knockout a little bit earlier, which could sort of push you ahead in the prize trade as well, which is really nice. We've got one switch in here. The deck isn't overly reliant on switching cards because we have three free retreaters in Zubat to start with, and then the Golbat and the Crobat are free retreaters if we ever lose a Seismitoad later on down the line. So there isn't too much reliance on switching cards, but I still feel one is justified just because every deck needs some sort of switching, and if Toad gets lasered itself, but isn't item locked, because there are other decks that play laser, or if a Toad just needs to get out of the active after starting with Shaman or anything like that, there's loads of situations where sometimes the single switch is just clutch. A new addition to the deck and Toad's arsenal really is Trainer's Mail, which I think does wonders for the deck sometimes, just because paired with Shaman, Trainer's Mail can lead into an Ultra Ball, which can lead into a Shaman. Trainer's Mail can lead into a Laser. Trainer's Mail can lead into a Supporter. There's just so many good things that Trainer's Mail can get. It's one of my favourite... That's the Ultra Ball. It's one of my favourite new cards of the set, and I think it's definitely up there in the most useful things that Seismitoad gains from the latest set. Obviously, other than Shaman, I think it's probably the second most important thing that Toad gets. We've then got 4 Ultra Ball, again, just simply because Ultra Ball is often an out to 4 or 5 cards with Shaman, which is insanely good. Obviously, Ultra Ball can also search for bats and Seismitoad as and when you need them, but a lot of the time, early on at least, you're going to be going for the Shaman EX, meaning that your Ultra Balls later on down the line, you're probably going to still be using them for Shaman EX, because you're going to have drawn through a lot of the deck, and you're going to be able to draw into the Golbat and Crobat relatively easily anyway. We've also got 4 VS Seeker in here. The VS Seeker count could be considered high, but I think 4 is pretty much the perfect number. It's a relatively low supporter count, since we're relying quite a lot on Shaman EX draw support. We've only got 2 Lysander, 1 Trump card, 3 N, 4 Sycamore, and 1 0-6. So there's actually only 7 draw supporters in the deck. So maybe you might want to take out a VS Seeker for another draw supporter, perhaps a 4th N or a Chorus or something like that. But I feel 4 VS Seeker is just so versatile, especially as a lot of the time you're going to be wanting to trumping back in the lasers and the DCEs, headringers, everything like that. It's just really useful. That's sort of pretty much justifies Trump as well, because Trump can get back all of the toys that Seismitoad players love to use to try and troll you and slow you down as much as possible. 2 Lysander, pretty much still because Donphan is such a threat. I think Donphan's really under the radar at the moment. It deals with Toad so well and can sometimes just win Toad matches. Just especially if the Toad player doesn't play more than 1 copy of Lysander, because they don't have access to the hitting and switching tactics that Donphan does. They can't really deal with taking out Hawluchas every other turn, and Hawlucha also trades really well with Toad. So being able to take out some of their big damage output is really useful, and obviously Toad trades Toad's damage is really good with Donphan's HP, because you have double damage with Toad, and then if you've got a laser and a muscle band, you actually one-shot a Donphan in 1 turn, which is really nice, and can often sort of put them sort of 2 or 3 turns behind, especially if they've built up a big Donphan to wreck you next turn. We've got 3N, I don't know why it's not showing up. PTCGO seems to be having a bit of a wobbly today, but we've got 3N, simply because you don't mind ending yourself to low hands, because a lot of the time your board setup is going to be what you're looking for. You're not going to need much more. N is obviously really strong for the deck in the early game. And late game, especially if you've got a lockup, if you can then end your opponent's sort of 2 cards, it means that they're going to be at a low hand anyway, and if they're drawing into supporters, they're not going to be able to use any of the cards they draw. So N, I think, is just so strong in Seismitoad. We've got 4 Sycamore pretty much just because that's how you play decks these days. And 4 Sycamore is pretty much standard in everything these days. And then finally, supporters wise, we've got 1-0 Syc. Again, another card that really swings the mirror match into your favour, because you can sort of 0 Syc, getting rid of your opponent's DCEs. More than likely they will be playing 0 Syc too. Most Toad players are at the moment. But 0 Syc sort of means that you can get rid of their DCEs and sometimes break the lock, meaning that you can then go ahead and sort of use your trainers for a turn and sort of push your lead ahead potentially. We've got 3 Verbank City Gym, again just because we have lasers, and Verbank just increases the pressure that Toad has by dealing an extra 2 damage, or technically 3 damage, after every turn, which is super strong. And then finally we've got 3 Muscle Band and 2 Headringer. Muscle Band again just sort of pushes how quickly Toad can take prizes through the roof, especially with bats. You can often take EX prizes in 1 or 2 turns, which is so strong. And then 2 Headringer again helps with the Toad mirror, because they're unable to attack sometimes because you've set up you've put a Headringer on their Toad, meaning that their Toad needs 3 energy to use a Quaking Punch, whereas you only need 2. And then against things like Rayquaza and everything like that, it's often really useful. It stops Spirit Links, which is such a good sort of use for Headringer, because it can completely nullify one of their Pokemon in their deck sometimes. And yeah, it's just in general such a useful card, really, especially in the EX heavy format that we're in at the moment. But yeah, I'm going to head into a battle, and I will show you how the deck runs, and I will see you there. Okay, so let's see if we can grab a game. I haven't really played with the deck online yet, so hopefully we'll see how it tests online. Looks like we're up against a fighting and psychic deck first, and our opponent's probably going to go first. He did win the coin flip. Looks like our opponent's taking the time to decide though. I'm still not sure whether, or 100% of the time, whether to go first or second. I feel first puts you at such a good advantage, but going second sometimes, like say with Seismitoad, going second means that you can set up the lock often straight away. So some people may prefer to go second. I still think first is pretty important though. So let's hold on to the Shaman. We've got an okay hand, and we see a Hawlucha, so that was kind of expected. I'm not sure what psychic type he could be paired with. Maybe Mewtwo, something like that. Maybe some people may be trying Drifblim again. That was quite popular for a little while when back in around December time, when special energy was everywhere, and it certainly is again now. So I could definitely see that being played. He's going to go for the Trainer's Mail and the Muscle Band. And then a Sycamore, maybe we'll see something here. Just a lot of supporters, really. Okay, so we're going to draw, and there's certainly some stuff we can do with the hand. Let's go for the Verbank and the Muscle Band. I'm tempted to 0 Syc, but I think we'll Shaman, just to hopefully be able to use Sycamore, though that's really tough. That's 2 Verbank. That's the other 2 Verbanks, which is pretty painful. I don't want to discard those, so I think I'm gonna go for the N. Though I really need the DCE this turn, and we do miss it, which is really unfortunate. Let's go for a laser flip. And we get the heads, so that's important. And then let's go for... let's see if we can get the Super Scoop up first. We do get the Super Scoop up, so I'm going to grab the Shaman and get us another 2 cards. And then we can use Ultra Ball, getting rid of probably these 2. To grab another Shaman. I don't mind then attaching the Muscle Band to the Shaman, that's okay. For 4 cards, hopefully we get the DCE here. We do indeed get the DCE, which is really important. And then we can Shaman for another 2. This is how strong Shaman is. Just letting you draw through the deck so quickly. And that's actually the game, because the laser will put him to 80 and win us the game. So, as you can see, I didn't even notice that. Seismitoad can donk as well, apparently. That's certainly not the aim of the game. But, you know, let's see if we can get another sort of longer game with the deck. Hopefully something a little bit more justifiable, as opposed to knocking out our opponent's only Pokemon on first turn. That was probably quite annoying for him. There's some pretty cool sleeves. I think they're from the Emerald, not Emerald Break, Roaring Skies Elite Trainer box. So we start with Zubat. There's certainly worse things to start with. Shaman being the one. And we see a Pikachu. That's interesting. So I'm going to go for the laser. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get much off of this Shaman, but I think I'm going to go for it anyway, just to see if we can get a Toad or something like that. We don't get much, that's unfortunate. We could certainly sort of attach to the Shaman, but I think N is important here, so I'm just going to go for the N. We get the Toad, yeah, we get the Toad and the Zubat. I'm going to Super Scoop it first, just to see whether we can pick up the Shaman. It'd be really useful if we could, but unfortunately we don't get to. So let's bench the Toad and the Shaman. Let's go for a Muscle Band on the Toad. And then let's go for the Verbank. I'm going to hold on to the VS Seeker as opposed to getting the N this turn, because I can't see this being any sort of Toad deck. No. I've never seen that Pikachu before. I'm gonna go and get the N just in case. I'd rather be safe and have a supporter next turn than sort of risk anything. And then let's leave the Zubat up. I'm not too bothered if it manages to get knocked out, even though it is weak. He's gonna get the Skyfield down and Swablu, which means we're probably going to be dealing with Mega Rayquaza here. So this could be interesting to see. Mega Rayquaza is one of the deck's most difficult matchups, I think, which for such a popular deck is relatively worrying, but you know, some people don't think Mega Rayquaza will be particularly big. It may be overhyped, so it'll be interesting to see how this does. What have we got here? I think these are Grass Energy. Yeah, they are. Okay. So everything I'd sort of expect to see in a Mega Rayquaza at the moment. If he can't find a switch, though, we're going to be able to take out this Pikachu next turn. He's going to grab another Shaman and get another few cards. I've never actually seen a full bench with Skyfield, so if he can manage to get a full bench up, that'll be interesting to see, because I've never seen what it looks like. The little things. Hopefully we can get a Golbat. We can actually take out this Pikachu this turn, but we don't manage to. I'm going to see if we can Super Scoop up something. Unfortunately we miss. That's a pretty big shame. In that case, I'm going to Headringer this. No, I'm going to hold the Headringer, just in case he throws down a Rayquaza next turn. And then let's Quaking Punch, knocking out the Pikachu and beginning the lock. We get a Lysander, which isn't going to be too useful. Alternatively, I suppose it could be, as opposed to Mega Rayquaza, just sort of Shaman. I haven't seen any Rayquaza parts yet, I don't think. No, so it could be Shaman or sort of a Shaman lock deck in all honesty. Or no, hit and switch deck in all honesty. It's difficult to say. I'm going to head ring the Virizion just because I know he plays grass, which is kind of expected. He could Emerald Slash, which is relatively scary. We could certainly take the prize on the Swablu this turn, which is tempting. Let's go for discarding the N, and as scary as it is, I'm going to discard a DCE just because I'm not sure what I'm going to get from the Shaman this turn. Depending on what we get from the Shaman, I may Lysander instead. If we get another DCE here, I'm going to be very sad. Okay, we're going to go for the Golbat, and let's put the damage on the Swablu. I think that was the right play. Let's bench the Toad, and let's see if we can get a heads. We do. Someone's saying the deck's gay. I suppose that's a fair comment against Toad. Some people don't like Toad at all. We are going to be able to take out this Swablu this turn. And we do get a laser. Let's Lysander up the... I'm going to Lysander up a Shaman. I know he has the DC in hand, but let's see if we can get this thing to sleep. Because if we can, it's going to mean that he could miss a turn of being able to hit. And I don't particularly want to Juniper away the two lasers, in all honesty. He does unfortunately wake up, which means that was sort of a wasted laser, but that's okay. He seems to be spending more time talking to us than actually playing the game, which is fair enough, I suppose. I could certainly... He's probably going to throw up the Virizion here. So I could laser the Virizion and then just go for that. So let's do that. Let's use the laser on the Virizion, because he doesn't have any grass attached at the moment. And then because he's got the Skyfield in play, we can actually play the third Shaman and draw another 5 cards. I'm going to attach a head ringer just because I can't see at this point now. I don't think we're going to be playing against Mega Rayquaza. Let's do another 2 damage. Let's go for the Virizion. And let's put a Verbank into play. Discarding... Yeah, I think Shaman is probably the best here. We could, in all honesty, play another laser and Sycamore, but I don't really see reason to. So let's just Quaking Punch again. Unfortunately, he has resistance, but we are going to be doing quite a bit of damage. He does wake up, which is unfortunate, but he's only got 90 HP left, so with 2 Crobat snipes, we are going to be able to knock out next turn. If we can get the Crobats. He's going to go for an N, N'ing away his own DCE. That's interesting. He does get the grass, which means he probably can retreat. And there's the Rayquaza, so call me a liar, it was Rayquaza in the end. I honestly did not expect the Rayquaza. Let's drop another 30 damage on the Virizion, meaning that we are indeed going to need the second Crobat to be able to knock out. But honestly, I think that's okay. Let's Sycamore away what we've got, and hopefully we can find... We do find the Ultra Ball. I don't know whether the Crobat's even in there, so we can have a look through now. Those are the 2 cards I'm probably okay with getting rid of. And we do get the Crobat, that's really important. So we can throw the Crobat. onto the Virizion, which means we're going to be knocking out this Virizion next turn. And we've also got a laser for the Rayquaza that I'm presuming is probably going to come up next turn and start swinging at us. Let's grab an Enhanced Hammer just in case he attaches a DCE next turn to the Rayquaza. And then let's Quaking Punch for another 2 prizes. We seem to be getting more aggression from our opponent here, but at the end of the day, we do have a stronger board, so that's okay. He can be sad. It's okay. Let's hammer away this energy. It looks like this Toad's probably going to be going down next turn, but that's all right. Let's laser. See what we get with the laser. We do get a heads. We don't actually have another DCE lined up for the second Toad, which worries me slightly. So let's VS Seeker. It will mean getting rid of the Enhanced Hammer, but hopefully we can find ourselves a DCE in the process. I didn't see what he said there. Oh, it looks like he's conceded, so looks like Toad went out in the end. I'm really surprised how well that Mega, well, I'm presuming it was Mega, that Mega Rayquaza matchup went out, because the deck can often struggle with Mega Rayquaza. But yeah, there's not much else for me to say. I'm going to leave it there. I'll probably do a battle video with this tomorrow, just to showcase the deck a little bit more. So I'll put the deck analysis up overnight tonight, and then overnight tomorrow I will put another 3 or 4 battles with the deck, just to sort of show you guys how it works. Excuse me, just sort of show you how it works. But yeah, the deck is really good for beating Toad Mirror. So certainly try it if you're in a Toad heavy format or meta, which pretty much everywhere is at the moment. Definitely give it a try. It may give you the edge against your opponents who are all playing Toad. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I'm just sort of waffling now. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in hopefully the battle video, or if not, another video on the channel. Thanks guys.